you on the road with Brother Rick, or actually out of the office with Brother Rick, but I call this On the Road with Rick. Hitching, hiking, and hoboing life's lessons from life's highway. Over the last 40 years, I've traveled a lot of roads, sometimes hiking, sometimes hitchhiking, sometimes walking, sometimes hopping trains, and along the way I've learned a few things, not just about travel, but about life itself. And that's what I want to share with you, especially during these days of quarantine, when we're not out hitching, hiking, or hoboing much. We're all stuck at home. There's still some lessons we can learn. I'm a storyteller at heart. One of my favorite stories I learned from some of my Catholic friends, Matt and Pollyanna and Jeff, and some of my buddies from St. Michael. They told me the history of St. Christopher. St. Christopher didn't start out as St. Christopher. St. Christopher started out somewhere around the year 300 A.D. when a man was born, and his father looked at him. He was a large baby. He seemingly was maybe a deformed baby, and the father named his son Reprobus, which would mean reprobate. It would also be translated as someone who is damned from the beginning and damned forever. How would you like to have that for a name? Reprobus, damned from the beginning and damned forever. That's what Reprobus was called. So he grew up a pretty mean and angry young man. You can understand that. Supposedly, he grew to a large stature. He was a huge man, violent man. He became a professional warrior. He would actually hire himself out here and there to any king, any army that would take him on. He fought for many armies, would have been a mercenary. He eventually went to work for Caesar Maximus II, who was the most violent, mean, evil leader of the time, and he'd heard about Reprobus. Reprobus had heard about him, and he went to work for this king, just as a hired mercenary, fighting, killing, doing what mercenaries do. He thought if Maximus Caesar is the meanest king, then that's who I'll work for. But one day Caesar saw a cross beside the road, and Caesar made the sign of the cross. Reprobus could see in his face something of fear, something of respect, something even of wonder, and Reprobus had no idea what the cross meant, and he asked Caesar, "What is that for?" And he said, "The one who hung on that cross, he was certainly a strong and more brilliant, violent man than me. He faced death itself and overcame it." And Reprobus began to think at that time, "I'd like to one day meet this Christ man who hung on the cross and conquered even death itself." Later on, the legend has it that Reprobus maybe even fought with a demon army. That the Caesar told him there's great power in evil, and Reprobus said, "Well, I want whatever power is." So he went to work for a demon army and fought with them. And again, one day the demon army came across the sign of the cross, a cross beside the road, perhaps a cross on a cathedral or a church or something, and the demon was like, "Oh, you don't want to deal with that one. That one conquered even death itself." And Reprobus said, "I want to go for whoever's the strongest." So he went out and found a monk, a hermit, and he said, "I'd like to learn more of this Christ who fought and conquered even death itself." And the priest began to teach Reprobus the things of Scripture and of God, and Reprobus converted and said, "I would like to give my life serving this Christ warrior. Well, what can I do?" And the priest, being a hermit, said, "Well, you could just be a hermit like me, lock yourself away in a cave in solitude and silence and pray." And Reprobus said, "That's not for me. I'll never be able to do that. I'm a fighting man." And so the priest said, "Maybe there is another job." And he took him to a river cross, and he said, "This river goes on a journey that many people take to go to a shrine or a church. If you could help people cross the river." And Reprobus said, "Certainly I can do that." So Reprobus with a staff, he always had a staff to help him cross the river, fill out sticks, hold on to when the stream got high, and he would cross that river. Taking many, many people, many a day, many a month, many a year he just did this, until Reprobus supposedly began to grow old and his strength began to fail him. He was not as strong as he once was. And so he would work to cross the river with his staff. And one night, in the middle of a storm, and it rained a lot, and the river was high, a young child came and said, "I need you to cross this river." And Reprobus said, "It's too high. I can't do it. It'll wash us both away." And the child said, "I must cross the river tonight." There was some reason he had to get across that very night. So Reprobus put the child on his shoulders, and with his staff, he worked his way across the river. The further he went, the weaker he felt, the more he hung onto that staff, the more heavy the child felt. And so he struggled with the staff, with the child, but he made it across. And when he was across the river, he took the child down and thanked him gratefully. And Reprobus said, I never thought I would make it across this river. It was so strong. I felt so weak. You felt so heavy. He said, matter of fact, I felt like I was carrying the weight of the world on my shoulders. And the child supposedly smiled, as legend would have it, and said, you did not carry the weight of the world, but you carried the weight of he who created the world. The child was a type of Christ. And the child told him, no more shall you be called Reprobus, damned from the beginning and damned forever. Your name shall henceforth be Christopher, he who carries Christ. And years later, within the Catholic Church, Christopher was made a saint, Saint Christopher, and he is the patron saint of travelers. I like that, because even though I'm not a Catholic, I like the thought of someone that would travel with me. I like the image of Saint Christopher with that staff. I have some of my staffs here that I've brought along for a show and tell. I've used the staff in my life many times to carry a child across the river. I've got across the river myself on some difficult journeys. I've got up and down some mountains on some difficult journeys. I've had some staffs that's helped me walk many a mile. Matter of fact, I was estimating, talking to my son Elliot last night when we were finding all my staffs and putting them together. And this isn't all, this is just a handful of them. He said, Dad, how many miles have those staffs been? And I said, well, this red one right here, this red staff has been probably 10,000 miles. And it's walked many a mile across many a state. It's my oldest walking stick that I actually use on my journeys. I said the blue one that's similar, very similar to it, including some reflective tape to keep cars from hitting me so they could see me and not run over me. I said this blue stick I think is probably been 5,000-6,000 miles, and altogether these staffs have traveled many a mile. They've become very sentimental to me. You think, oh, you're talking more like John Muir or Thoreau, which nothing wrong with talking like Muir or Thoreau, but I'm not the only one to have an affinity for a staff. In the Bible, there's a man named Zechariah, one of those prophet dudes who you don't hear a lot about, not a lot of sermons with Zechariah. But Zechariah writes these words for God in Zechariah chapter 11, verse 7. He said, so I shepherd the flock that was intended for slaughter, the oppressed and the poor, those marked for slaughter. And I took two staffs, and I named one of them Pleasant, or Beauty, and the other I called Unity. And then I tended the flock. I like that. Zechariah said, I'm going to take care of the flock that's intended for slaughter, those who are poor and oppressed. That's kind of what I do more than ever. I run a drug rehab. We bring in men and women. We have His Place for Men, Hosanna Home for Women. Most of the men and women who come to us are oppressed from drugs and alcohol. They come out of prison. They come off the road homeless. They come out of mental institutions. They come intended for slaughter. And I say, God, help me by your strength and to your glory. Help us to shepherd these people. And that's kind of what I do. And so following in the footsteps, Zechariah, following in the footsteps of other shepherd and other sheep who had gone before him, he said, I'm going to need some staffs. A shepherd had a staff that was similarly an extension of his hand. He could reach out and pull a sheep in with it. He could use it again for going up and down the mountain. He could use it for marking his trail. He could use it if he had to reach out and tap a sheep to keep it from going a certain way. It was a big part of his job. Probably Zechariah, like all of us, remember the words of David, who had been a shepherd. And David, remember, he says in Psalms 23, thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. They comfort me. David knew there was something about that rod, something about the staff, the walking stick that he used, that helped him. The staff, in its basic definition, the staff would be an extension of the shepherd himself. The shepherd would use the staff to reach out beyond himself to do what he wanted to do, but what he couldn't do on his own. If he needed maybe to climb up a certain height, he couldn't do that on his own strength. That staff would give him leverage to pull up. Or if he's coming down and he knows he's going too fast, perhaps he would use that staff to slow him down. Or again, like we mentioned, to hook a sheep and pull it in. I know in my walk, I walk many a mile, 15,000 miles on my journey. I do a state every year. Last year, went out and walked across Nevada. This year I'm looking at going to walk across Idaho and Oregon. I've done 40 states altogether. And in every state, some of the sticks have gone with me. I remember distinctly this red stick climbing up Mount Elbert in Colorado. That's the tallest mountain in Colorado, 14,000 feet. And by the time I had got close to the top, I was tired. I was more than tired. I was whooped. And so the stick helped pull me up and give me some leverage and give me some strength. I can remember having this same stick in New Mexico when we went up Wheeler Peak with my youngest son, and again, very tired. And coming down was more tired than going up. And I can remember the stick helping break me to keep me from going too fast and tumbling over a ledge. I can remember this stick with me when I was walking in Mississippi on the Natchez Trace, and I got really thirsty and hungry and ran out of water, and there was nothing to drink on the Natchez Trace. And I happened to look on the ground and I saw a few muscadines. If you're from the South, you know what a muscadine is. It's a wild grape that tends to grow very high up in a vine and a tree. And I looked up that day, hot, thirsty, on the Natchez Trace, and saw clusters of muscadines and scuppernons, which are the golden muscadines. But I couldn't reach them, so I took my stick, and my stick was able to reach up, and I was able to knock down some fruit that helped me. So my sticks have been with me many a time. I've got another stick here. This stick doesn't look nearly as fancy as the red one, but this stick is special to me because this was my mama's walking stick. My mama's been dead for probably 20 years, too many years, but I could hold this stick if I'm going in the woods with my mama exploring all the way back to when I was a little boy and on when I was a man. That was one of the things I would do with my mom, is go walking. So the stick means something to me. Zechariah named his sticks beautiful and pleasant, and he called one of them Unity. So I guess I name all my sticks. My red and blue stick that I use the most often, I kiddingly sometimes call them faithful and true. They've been faithful and true. And then, of course, I'm not always that spiritual. I've also named this one Gandalf and this one Gus, after the Lord of the Rings, and Gus in looking at Lonesome Dove, thinking of him. Then I got my mama's stick here, and I said I can name it Memories, and then I got another stick stuck somewhere here. This one here is one that was given to me by a missionary. She said, you're the one the Lord used to make me become a missionary. She had this stick commissioned. It was actually carved in Africa by a holy man who traveled, and she said, I want you to think about all the mission trips that you took me on and all the trips that you do. So I call this stick Dreaming, my dreaming stick. And so I got all kind of sticks stuck in here that mean something to me. But the truth of the matter is that in the journey of life, we all need a stick. We need a staff to help us make it. We can't make it on our own. This coronavirus has probably taught you what it's taught me and taught a lot of us. We need help. The economy's in trouble. Perhaps you have someone you love whose very health is in trouble. Our churches are in trouble. We can't even meet, so we need help. And God says, I'll not leave you by yourself. I'll send a comforter to come to you. Sometimes the comforter comes with a gift. And sometimes that gift can be a stick, a walking stick, that'll help us make it many a mile. I know with my sticks, they've helped me do many things. Get up a hill, come down a hill. They've helped me knock down fruit. They help me make time when you walk all day. Just having a stick sometimes helps you keep a little rhythm. And when you're white and a Baptist, you need all the rhythm you can get. My sticks have helped me keep a mean dog away. Or once in Nevada, there was a rattlesnake that I almost stepped on the trail. And with my stick, I was able to pick that rattlesnake up gently. He wasn't bothering nobody, and I moved him where he certainly wasn't going to bother me. So my sticks have been there. The sticks help me, my hands from swelling. If you walk all day with your hands down, your hands will swell up. So simply having a walking stick to help you keep that rhythm helps your hands from swell. And most of all, the sticks become a companion to me. When you're by yourself all day, you can simply get lonesome. So the sticks just are something that I could touch and hold on to. And sometimes in the journey of life, you need something to touch and hold on to, especially these days we're living in. So these sticks even become a companion to me. My sticks remind me that when I'm weak, God makes me strong. A stick is only so much strength, but the God who gives you the stick, as a sign, as a symbol, as a gift, he makes us strong. Moses found a stick when he was at his worst. He was destitute. He was dehydrated. He was despised by his people. He was on the back side of the desert. Not just the desert, but the Bible says the back side of the desert. And he saw a bush that was burning. And then that bush began to speak to him. It was the voice of God within that bush. And God said, Moses, I want you to go back to Egypt and set my people free. And Moses said, I can't do it. I'm too weak. I can't do it. And God said, you can. And in fact, God speaks to Moses in the book of Exodus, chapter 4, verses 1 through 4. And it says, then Moses answered and said to God, what if they will not believe me or listen to what I say? Well, they may say, the Lord has not appeared to you. And the Lord said to him, what is that in your hand, Moses? And he said, it is a staff. And then the Lord said to him, throw it on the ground. So he threw it on the ground, and it became a serpent. And Moses fled from it. But the Lord said to Moses, stretch out your hand and grasp it by its tail. So he stretched out his hand, and he caught it, and it became a staff in his hand once again. God took what Moses had was just a shepherd's staff, a walking stick, and God used it. That staff later on is used by Moses through the power of God to open up the Red Sea. It's used to touch a rock in a dry desert that water comes forth. More than that, every day, we don't have record, Moses used it in his walking. He used it in his day-to-day life. And God blessed what Moses has, seemingly where he was weak. Oh, religion is a crutch. Well, you need religion to help crutch you along. And I tell people, I know what a crutch is. I broke my back years and years ago. I was paralyzed. It's been about 15 months of my life in and out of hospitals. When I finally came out, I came out with crutches and with braces. And I needed them. I didn't like them, but I needed them to walk. Until one day God touched me and healed me, and I no longer needed a crutch or to walk along. I was glad that I had them when I needed them. But the power of God became something more than just a crutch. It became that walking stick that helped me make many a mile through life. I was a runner, and now I've become a long-distance walker, just walking through life. Sometimes physically you need a crutch. Sometimes physically you need a walking stick. But spiritually, certainly we do. These days aren't easy. Whatever trip you're on, I can tell you, it's a difficult journey. We're out of work. It's been hard in our ministry. Our thrift store, there's no source of income. Our men and women still need to be fed. And so I say, God, even in my weakness, I call out to you, and I know that you're faithful. We were praying the other day, and a man 800 pounds of meat. As a preacher, you don't usually get 800 pounds of meat in an offering, but I did. That 800 pounds feed my men and women for many a week. God was faithful. Sometimes even in my heart at night time, I worry. I do. I think, God, how can we make it through this? What are you going to do in my life? And God comes and speaks to me. And often I'll remember even my stick itself, how it's helped me up and down. And God gives us a stick that symbolizes our weakness to carry us on. Enoch was a man that walked with God. I like Enoch. There's one weird scripture about Enoch in the Bible. In Genesis 5, verse 24, it says, Enoch walked with God, and then he was not, for God took him. Now, the truth of the matter is God supernaturally resurrected Enoch. He's one of the few men that never tasted. But I think it symbolizes much more. If you walk with God, like Enoch, Enoch walked with God and he was not. If you'll walk with God, if you'll take whatever stick God's given you in your life, whatever tool, whatever ability, or even your disability, and say, God, I'm going to take a step, then you're going to be like Enoch. You're going to walk with God, and Enoch was not. You're not going to be afraid. You're not going to be frightened. You're not going to be left alone. You're not going to be left without sustenance. You're not going to be left with your prayers unanswered. You're going to find when you walk with God, you're going to be not afraid, not empty, not destitute. You'll be like Enoch when you walk with God. God will give you a stick to help you walk on through. I don't know where you're at. I don't know what you're going through, but I want to close with this. Take whatever stick God's given you, a friend, your ability to sing, the resources that you have, whatever you have. They may be little, they may be much, but whatever you have, take it and use it for God. Maybe you're afraid. Take a step anyway and name your step faith. Maybe you're lonely and you have a right to be. You go home to an empty house, but say, I'm going to take this empty house and use it as a staff and as a walking stick, and I'm going to name it friend. Maybe you're bound up by something. We deal with people that come to us every day bound by drugs and alcohol and fear and all manner of things. Take a step anyway and say, where I am weak, God's going to be strong in my weakness. I'm going to call it freedom, and I'm going to step out. Maybe you failed before and before and before, and you're scared to take another step. Take a step anyway. Call that step and the stick you take it with, call it try again or second chance. Don't give up. Step out and step on. People always ask me what's been my favorite walk that I've gone on. I tell people I can look at these sticks. I think a Medium walk up New Mexico. I loved eating the burritos there with the green chilies, and I love climbing up Wheeler Peak. Colorado, I can remember climbing up the tallest mountain there, Mount Elbert. I remember running out of water on another mountain, and just all the memories that are there. But God has been there with me. I think about the sticks, how they helped me from falling down or helped pull me up, how they helped turn over a rock where I found some wet sand that I was able to dig out and get some water that I purified and could drink. The best walks have always had their stumbles, and the best walks in your life will have their stumbles. But your stumble happens just before you think you'll fall. With a stumble, when you're walking with God, it becomes not a fall, but it becomes a lift-off. And when you think you stumbled, if you walk with God, take your staff, take your stick, push up, and you can fly. God comes to us and He tells us, stick them up. And if we'll take our weakness and give them to Him, then He gives us all the gold of heaven. Walk on with God. Give your stick a name. Stick them up and learn to fly.